All right, we're reading the United States Army Inspector General Teaching and Training Guide, May 2010. We're on Chapter 2. Chapter 2, Teaching and Training and Embedded Functions. T221, Teaching and Training Inspections. 22, Teaching and Training Assistance. 228, Teaching and Training Investigations. Section 2.1, Teaching and Training Inspection. Purpose of the section is to direct the teaching and training function embedded with the Inspector General inspections. And teaching and training during the Special Inspector General inspection, Special Inspector General inspections over the systematic issue with the traditional rely upon with the multiple units of other organizational information relayed with the topic in question, the focus of the resolve of the pattern with the non-compliance with the system, and the unit for the other organizations with experience with these problems serve the data or gather the points that allow the Inspector General to identify the trouble spots within the system, making recommendations that they will implement with the resolve systematic issues. The Inspector General inspector often become so focused on the gathering required on the information that may miss key for the opportunities to explain with the units and the organization visit for the particular staring by the current update with the pertaining to the system in the question mainly routes cause for the non-compliance with the return leave with the larger systematic issues following the team that don't know categories because of the complex, highly regulated army. We do not have many standard requirements that often overwhelm the leaders at all levels on the on-site. The opportunity to educate the units and other organizations on the standard and how the system works in general are critical, avoiding the recurring of the problems related with the system while the time on the may often be a factor. The Inspector General should always strive for the teaching the same to gather information because in most cases the best remedy for systematic problem is to know one of the roles of the system, how to make it work. The teaching and the training during the general inspection, General Inspector General's inspections. In the Inspector General primary, the focus of the special inspection for the systematic issue, but the directing of the authorities may sometimes determine for the Inspector General to conduct the general compliance-oriented inspection, particular unit because of the operational necessity, several lack of the time, and the significant problems within the organization hinder the readiness. Although the Inspector General role with the measure of the units complying with the standards related with the unit mission, the readiness for the teaching and training role within this case, the more critical within the special inspection for the systematic issue for the unit staff, the member that may lack with the knowledge and training of the established and or sustain the respective functional area of the organization, since the Inspector General must be bound with the inspection requirement of the teaching of the training, so that then once the Inspector General inspection team, the department and reports the unit status of the direct authority of the unit itself will be more likely to sustain their own readiness due to the Inspector General team membership. In many cases, the readiness assistant visits or RAV may be appropriate for the General Inspection C32 with the guide with the certain permits. Inspector General should recommend the approaching with the direct authority with the General Inspection. The readiness assistant visit will serve the cohesion, building, and experience of the unit and will help that organization sustain its own readiness over time without relying upon the external inspection and or assistance efforts to help achieve the mission readiness. Section 2.2, Teaching and Training Assistant. The purpose of this section is to address the teaching of the training function embedded with the Inspector General Assistant function. Teaching and training while providing the systematic compliance over the author often bring with the issue with the Inspector General resolution that do not merit with the inquiry because the individual will fail to understand with the current standard that may not realize with the problem does not exist with the unfound issue with the requirement on the spot the teaching by the Inspector General to inform individual on standard why the compliant lack merits. For example, the soldier may complain over the Inspector General he or she does not receive the proper number that permits the temporary duties within the commander. Days from the command. The Inspector General learned from the background information compliant with upon the receipt of the Inspector General action request if the Inspection General immediately consult with the governing regulation with the compliant with the present to determine the individual concerned or accordance with the current Army policy, but in many cases the complaints that do not follow with the understanding how the situation apply with the policy with the Inspection General is in position to explain such a matter for the individual, but even with the compliance submit with the founding of the Inspector General action request of the Inspector General action. The Inspector General can still teach the compliant with any of the current change of the policy standard in question, especially with the change of the modified with the result of the assistant required to notify the complainant of the result. Step 5 of the Inspector General Access Program is a General Access Process. Inspector General Access Process, or IGAP, is also a good opportunity to teach compliance about the new and revised standard through the Inspector General to discover during the assistance inquiries. Section 2.3, Teaching and Training Investigation. The purpose of this section is to address the teaching and training function embedded with the Inspector General investigation function. The teaching and training for the conducted investigation, like for the inspection, the shift of the investigation, investigative, the inquiries present with the numerous opportunity for the teaching and training, particularly with during the Inspector General investigative information gathering activity. Teaching and training, gathering testimony, sworn within record, etc., provide with the Inspector General excellent opportunity to explain with the same, but especially with the subject suspect that would not understand how and why they may have been violated. Particular shame, for example, the allegation may involve the misuse of the government property while the gathering of the testimony From subject to suspect, but the Inspector General may rely, but the individual simply does not know and understand the policy. In these cases, the Inspector General can take the time to explain with the standard for the involved individual with the sum of the case of the individual alleged action that have been violated with the standard. Teaching and training can occur with both on and off tape, but generally teaching and training done with on the tape should be brief, but be careful that the subject or suspect could exploit with the teaching of the training opportunity come up with the false defense. For example, in a whistleblower reprisal case, the complainant learns that they're not knowing about the protection, the communication with his defense or to the reprisal. He or she may then deny any knowledge of the protected communication. Speaking of the reprisal, teaching and training is appropriate for the suspect. If the subject leads you to believe that he or she has determined who made a complaint, with actively trying to determine the complaint's identity. Explain with any of the diverse actions taken against the complaint you pick up with the communication. The Inspector General represents the authority of the Title 10 U.S. Standard Code 1034 of the whistleblower reprisal the complaint, submit the allegation, reprisal the action, then taking the following with the subject of the suspect interview with the record. The Inspector General teaching the training of the session would be likely to advance for the reprisal allegation. Teaching and training with the reports of the investigation, reports of the investigative inquiry. The Inspector General will often discover that during the course of the investigation, widespread with the gap of the understanding and knowledge of the certain same throughout the command, with these gaps of the understanding of the knowledge can take form of the broad tends on the focus of the specific staff, agency, or organization. Inspector General investigator may use the other matter of the paragraph of the reports of the investigation or reports of the investigation required to address the gap of the recommended by the direct authority. Teaching and training requirements for the particular standard throughout the command. In many cases, the simply not knowing this something can often lead to many of the issues allegation received by the Inspector General. So the Inspector General should use every opportunity to educate the broader command on the aspect of the Army policy, other standards that individuals have found to be confusingly implemented poorly. Chapter 3, Teaching and Training Independent Functions.